So nephridia, they are the tubular excretory structures of earthworms and also most of the other annelids. Kidneys are made up of thousands of nephrons, and these nephrons are actually the filtration units that are present in the kidney. Process of removal of the nitrogenous waste ammonia from the body of an organism is called as ammonotelism. Uriccotelic animals and ureotelic animals, their excretory organ is the kidney. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to today's session on a new chapter, that is chapter 19, Excretory Products and their Elimination. I am Dr. Divya, Biology Faculty, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, Mysuru, Temple of Excellence. So we all know that the food that we take in gets digested, right? And do you think that all the food that we take in gets digested? No, some are left undigested, and these undigested food contain a lot of uric acid, urea, ammonia, chlorides, chloride ions, sodium ions and all that, which needs to be eliminated out of the body, and that is nothing but the process of excretion. So in today's session, we shall discuss about the different types of excretory products, and based on that, what are the different types of animals have been categorized into and all that. So to begin with, we shall study with the excretory products. What are the different excretory products? So in our body, there are excretory products, not just in our body, even in an animal body also. There are excretory products in the form of ammonia, urea and uric acid. So these are the major nitrogenous waste that are produced. So whatever food we take in, they undergo digestion. Some of the food are left undigested and they carry nitrogenous waste such as ammonia, urea and uric acid. And these need to be excreted by the animals as well as the human beings. So talking about the first nitrogenous waste, that is ammonia. Among urea and uric acid, ammonia is the most toxic nitrogenous waste that is present, and it has to be eliminated completely out of the body. So it is the most toxic form of nitrogenous waste, and the excretion of ammonia requires large quantity of water. It requires large amount of water for it to get eliminated out of the body. Whereas talking about the other two nitrogenous waste, that is urea or uric acid, it is less toxic when compared to ammonia, and it can be removed with the minimum loss of water. That is why uric acid excretion is usually seen in birds, because birds, they make their, or maybe these desert animals, wherein lots of water should not be lost, or lot of water should not be lost for the excretion process. So that is when such animals such as the birds and the desert animals, they have adapted themselves in such a way that they can remove the excretory waste, that is the uric acid, by making use of very little amount of water. So that is the difference between the elimination of the two important nitrogenous waste, that is ammonia, which is very toxic when compared to the urea and uric acid, and they require large amount of water for their elimination or excretion, whereas uric acid, it is lesser toxic than ammonia and it requires very less water for its elimination. So now, since we know the excretory products, based on the type of excretory product, whether an animal is excreting ammonia or whether it is excreting urea or uric acid as their excretory product, based on that, the animals are classified into two types. One is ammonotelic animals and the uriccotelic animals. So we shall study about these one by one. There is a process called as ammonotelism. As the word itself says, ammonotelism, the process of excretion of ammonia or the process of removal of the nitrogenous waste ammonia from the body of an organism is called as ammonotelism. So next is ammonotelic animals. So those animals which undergo ammonotelism or which exhibit ammonotelism. So what is ammonotelism? It is nothing but the excretion of waste in the form of ammonia. So those animals which excrete ammonia as their excretory waste, they are called as the ammonotelic animals. So there are a lot of bony fishes, then aquatic amphibians and aquatic insects. All these are ammonotelic in nature. That is, their excretory product is ammonia. And what we had studied, ammonia is more toxic when compared to urea or uric acid, and it requires more water for elimination. And because these animals are in water itself, right? So that is why the body can make use of more water for the elimination of excretory waste. But that is not in the case of desert animals. So they exhibit uriccotelic behavior. So ammonia, as it is readily soluble, it is generally excreted by diffusion across the body surface. So how do they excrete? We have various excretory organs, right, depending on the animals. Now here I am talking about amphibians. So amphibians, they respire. We had studied in that is in the previous chapters, wherein we had studied that amphibians, they respire, that is cutaneous respiration, through their skin and also by making use of the gills, right? So here, how does the excretion of ammonia occur? So excretion of ammonia here is a diffusion process. So what is diffusion? Transport in water. Please remember the chapter. What had we studied there? The diffusion is nothing but the process wherein the movement of water molecules occur from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. Now, ammonia, which is dissolved in water, which is mixed with water in the body of the animal. In the body of the animal, the concentration of ammonia is more. Therefore, in order to maintain an osmotic balance, what happens? The ammonia moves out of the body of the animal. That is a simple diffusion process here. Or also, it can occur through gill surfaces in the case of fish as ammonium ions. So, ammonia is usually excreted through the skin by a simple diffusion process. And if you are talking about the excretion in the case of bony fishes which live in water, there the excretion is through the gills and the ammonia is excreted in the form of ammonia ions. And in these animals, in the ammonotelic animals, kidneys do not play any role in the process of excretion. So, kidneys do not play any significant role in the removal of the excretory product, that is ammonia. So, what are the organs that are involved in the removal of the excretory product? The ammonia gets removed by a simple diffusion through the skin, and through the gills it gets removed in the form of ammonia ions. So, here kidneys are nowhere involved in the excretory process. So, this was about ammonotelic animals. So, next moving to the other form of animal which is called as the uriccotelic animal. So, uriccotelic animal means they either excrete urea or uric acid. So, terrestrial adaptation, those organisms which live on land, they need to adapt themselves according to the availability of the water. So, terrestrial adaptation necessitated the production of lesser toxic nitrogenous waste like urea and uric acid for conservation of water. Why? Because not always, of course, the animals living in water, always they are exposed to water. But is it the same in the case of terrestrial animals? No. Sometimes the availability of water will not be enough. So, the amount of water that we drink, more amount of water we drink, more amount of water can be utilized properly for the excretion process. But what might happen if the water is less? If we drink less amount of water, excretion will be a problem, right? So that is why in order to avoid all this, nature itself has designed the excretory function in the animals, that is the terrestrial animals, in such a way that by making use of less amount of water, the uric acid and the urea can be eliminated easily from the body. So, such animals are called as uriccotelic animals. So, here talking about mammals. So, not just mammals, there are many terrestrial amphibians and marine fishes as well. They mainly excrete. So, marine fishes. Now, here we need to talk about the marine fishes. Marine fishes, there is a difference. Why? Because marine fishes, they live in a highly concentrated salt water condition, right? There also they are deprived of water because the water is highly concentrated. It contains a lot of salt. So there also these animals cannot make use of excess of water to remove their excretory products. We had learnt about this in transportation in plants. If you remember, what happens like in a solute, you put something hypertonic solution, all that we had studied, right? The same thing occurs in the animals also in this particular case. So marine animals, outside environment is salty, right? The water contains high amount of salt. So therefore, for the maintenance of the water balance, what happens? The water from the inside of the body of the organism moves to the outer environment. That is what happens because the marine animal is in a hypertonic solution now. So that is why here marine fishes also, they need to make use of very less amount of water to excrete their waste product. Therefore, they mainly excrete urea and they are called as the uriccotelic animals. So, there are two types of animals here, uriccotelic and uriccotelic. So, those organisms which excrete urea are called as uriccotelic animals, and those organisms which excrete uric acid are called as uriccotelic animals. And ammonia produced by metabolism is converted into urea. So here ammonia is also one of their waste product. But can they excrete ammonia? No. Why? Because ammonia excretion requires lot of water which these organisms are not capable of providing. So that is why the ammonia that is there in the body as nitrogenous waste, it gets converted into urea in the liver, and then it gets released into the blood. That urea, that ammonia that got converted into urea in the liver gets released into the blood, and it gets filtered and it gets excreted out by the kidneys. So we understood here uriccotelic animals and uriccotelic animals, their excretory organ is the kidney. But in ammonotelic animals, their excretory organ, kidney, do not take part in the excretion there. What takes part in the excretion there? It is the skin and the gills that take part in the excretory process. So this was about the uriccotelic animals. So next, moving on to the uriccotelic animals. So here some amount of urea may be retained in the kidney matrix of some of these animals to maintain the desired osmolarity. See, for example, here there are certain reptiles, birds, land snails and certain insects that excrete their nitrogenous waste in the form of uric acid, and they are in the form of pellets. Why in the form of pellets? Because if the excretion is in the form of pellets, then it requires very, very less amount of water. So that is the reason why they excrete in the form of pellets. You might have noticed even in we human beings also, if we drink very less amount of water, our excretion will be in the form of pellets. So that is the reason even in these animals also, to minimize the use of water, their excretion is in the form of pellets or in the form of paste with minimum loss of water, and therefore they are called as uriccotelic animals. So what did we understand here? Uriccotelic animals is nothing but wherein their excretory waste is eliminated in the form of uric acid, which is in the form of pellets or in the form of paste, to minimize the excessive use of water there. Reptiles, birds, land snails, insects are all uriccotelic animals. So now we have understood, based on the different types of excretory products, there are three types of animals. They are ammonotelic animals, we have uriccotelic animals and uriccotelic animals. Next, moving further, let us study about the excretory structure, that is kidney. So the uriccotelic and the uriccotelic animals, their excretory structure is the kidney. So kidneys, how exactly does the kidneys look? What is its structure? So in most of the invertebrates, they are simple tubular structures, whereas in the vertebrates, they have a complex tubular organ called as the kidneys. So not all organisms have a complex tubular organ. In some of the invertebrates, the the excretory part or structure that is there, it is in a very simple tubular form, but in the case of vertebrates, they have complex tubular organs called as kidney. Now, I told you some of the invertebrates, they have simple tubular forms of for excretion. So we shall take examples of such animals here. So one of the simple tubular forms found in the invertebrate is protonephridia or flame cells. So protonephridia or flame cells, they are the excretory structures in platyhelminthes, that is flatworms. Example, we can take use of planaria. So I have taken the diagram of planaria here. You can see they have simple tubular structures, and these tubular structures have flame cells, and these flame cells are the components of the tubule of their excretory structure, which actually helps in the process of excretion. So, not just planaria, there are some rotifers and some annelids and the cephalochordata. All these are simple tubular forms of excretory structures which are called as protonephridia or flame cells. And protonephridia are primarily concerned with how does exactly the excretion occur through the protonephridia. Here, ionic and fluid volume regulation will occur, that is osmoregulation, based on osmoregulation. Again here, based on the fluid volume and based on the ion concentration, the excretion will occur, which is called as the osmoregulation. So this is about the protonephridia or the flame cells. And apart from that, we have the higher invertebrates, that is the invertebrates that are there. For example, we human beings and most of the animals, we have a complex excretory structure which is called as the kidney. So we have kidneys here and simple excretory structure which is tubular form, which is the flame cells present in. One of the best example is planaria. They are called as the protonephridia or the flame cells. Moving further, there is one more simple excretory structure which is called as the nephridia. So nephredias are usually found in earthworms. So nephridia, they are the tubular excretory structures of earthworms and also most of the other annelids. And nephridia, their main function is they help in the removal of nitrogenous waste and they help in maintaining the fluid and the ionic balance. Here also, the excretion is by osmoregulation. So this is about nephridia. So if you can see here, earthworms, they have structures, tubular structures which are called as nephridia, which helps in the process of excreting the nitrogenous waste out of the body. So next, talking about Malpighian tubules. So these are also some of the excretory structures that are present in invertebrates. So Malpighian tubules are the excretory structure of most of the insects, including the cockroach. And the main function of Malpighian tubule is to remove the nitrogenous waste and also osmoregulation. So here if you can see Malpighian tubules, you can find in the insects. So almost all the insects, their excretory structure is the Malpighian tubule. Next, talking about one more excretory structure in the invertebrate, which is called as antennal glands or green glands. So antennal glands or green glands usually perform the excretory function in the case of crustaceans, for example, prawns. So if you see their region where their antenna begins, there you can see the antennal gland. So this is the bigger version of the antennal gland which is present at the base of the antenna. So this antennal gland actually helps in the process of excretion, especially in animals belonging to the crustacean groups, and one of the best example is prawn. So these are the different excretory structure present in the invertebrates. So we studied the protonephridia or the flame cells, then nephridia, then we understood about the Malpighian tubules and the antennal glands or the green glands. Moving further, now we'll study about the complex excretory structure that is present in the vertebrates, especially we'll take the example of humans here, that is the kidney. So we shall study about the human excretory system. So human excretory system, that is the kidney, consists of a pair of kidneys are present, wherein a pair of kidney, as you can see, one towards the right and the second one towards the left. So two kidneys are present or a pair of kidneys are present, and one pair of ureter is present, and the urinary bladder is present, and the urethra is present. So if you can see, there is presence of the urethra, the urinary bladder and the ureter. So much are present. So ureter, this is the tube-like structure which connects the kidney to the urinary bladder. So these are the four components that the excretory system in human beings are made of. So, talking about the size, shape and the color of the kidney and the structure of the kidney. So, kidney, they are usually reddish brown in color. The shape of the kidney is just like beans, how the bean pod looks like, exactly like that the shape of the kidney is. And their structure situated between the levels of last thoracic and the third lumbar vertebrae, close to the dorsal inner wall of the abdominal cavity, exactly to the lumbar vertebrae, that is on either side of a backbone, almost close to the abdomen. You can find the kidney, location of the kidney. It is located at the back of a body. So, each kidney of an adult human being, it measures about 10 to 12 centimeter in length and 5 to 7 centimeter in width and 2 to 3 centimeter in thickness, and they have an average weight. They weigh about 120 to 170 grams. So, this is about the kidney, how exactly the kidney looks. And towards the center of the inner concave surface of the kidney, there is a notch. Notch is nothing but a bend, right? As you can see, there is a notch. This is a notch. How in bean seeds also there will be a notch that is present, right? So, this is nothing but the notch. So, there is a notch which is called as hilum. So, this notch, it is called as hilum. Even in seeds also there is a notch which is called as the hilum. If you study the structure of the seeds, exactly they call it as the hilum there as well, through which ureter, blood vessels and nerves enter. So, as you can see here, it is through this notch, the ureter enters through this notch. Can you see the ureter entering through this notch? Then various blood vessels, the nerves, all that enters through that particular notch, which is called as the hilum. And inner to the hilum is a broad funnel shaped space which is called as the renal pelvis. And this renal pelvis has lot of fan like projections which is called as calyces. So, if you can see here, inner to the notch, can you see here, this is the renal pelvis. This portion is the renal pelvis inner to the notch, and this renal pelvis, it divides or it further continues to form certain projections which is called as calyces. So, these projections are nothing but called as the calyces. So, this is about the kidney. So, moving further, we shall study about the important functional unit of the kidney, that is called as the nephron. And kidneys are made up of thousands of nephrons, and these nephrons are actually the filtration units that are present in the kidney, which are the ones that help in the process of elimination of waste material. So, each kidney has nearly 1 million, it is not thousands, I had mentioned 1,000, but it has about 1 million complex tubular structures called as the nephrons, and these nephrons are the functional unit of the kidney. So, this is an important 1-mark question. They can ask which is the functional unit of the kidney. It is nephrons. And how many nephrons are present in each kidney? 1 million nephrons are present, and these nephrons perform the function of filtration. And each nephron is made up of 2 parts, that is the glomerulus and the renal tubule. So, if you can see here, they are made up of 2 parts. One is the glomerulus and then it is the renal tubule. So, this tubular like structure is called as the renal tubule. So, in the renal tubule, we have the distal convoluted tubule, the proximal convoluted tubule and the Henle's loop. All these come under the renal tubule. The tubular structure that is there is nothing but the renal tubule. So, glomerulus, talking about the first part of the nephron, which is called as the glomerulus. So, glomerulus is a tuft of capillaries formed by efferent arteriole, which is a fine branch of the renal artery. If you can see here, this capillary, this group of small capillary structures are called as the glomerulus. And what are they made up of? They are nothing but the continuation of the efferent arteriole, and also they end with the efferent arteriole. So, this is about the glomerulus. So, the capillary or tubular structure entering into the glomerulus is the efferent arteriole, and the one leaving the glomerulus is the efferent arteriole. So, you need to understand about these 2 things. and blood from the glomerulus is carried by the efferent arteriole. So, the one that enters into the capillary or tubular like structures entering into the glomerulus is the efferent arteriole, and the one that is leaving the glomerulus is the efferent arteriole, and that efferent arteriole's main function is to carry the blood from the kidney. So this is about the nephron. Moving further, we shall study about the renal tubule. So the renal tubule, I told you it is made up of two parts, right? That is glomerulus and the renal tubule. So renal tubule begins with a double-walled cup-like structure which is called as the Bowman's capsule. So these are the Bowman's capsule, and it is inside the Bowman's capsule that the glomerulus is present. Can you see here? This is the Bowman's capsule. Inside the Bowman's capsule, the glomerulus is present. So the same diagram, they have just shown it in a bigger form here. So this is the Bowman's capsule. Inside the Bowman's capsule, we have the glomerulus, and then the efferent arteriole, and the efferent arteriole which is leaving the glomerulus or leaving the Bowman's capsule that carries blood outside of the kidney, all that. And next, which encloses the glomerulus. That is what I said, the Bowman's capsule which encloses the glomerulus. And glomerulus along with the Bowman's capsule is called the Malfunction body or the renal corpuscle. So the Bowman's capsule along with, so both these Bowman's capsule and the glomerulus together they are called as the Malfunction body or the renal corpuscle. So they can ask in the exam, draw a neat label diagram. This is a 3-mark question. Draw a neat label diagram of the Malfunction body or the renal corpuscle. That is the time when you have to draw this. Or if they ask, draw a neat label diagram of the renal tubule also, you need to draw this. It is very important. So the tubule next further continues to form a highly coiled network which is called as the proximal convoluted tubule. So this is the proximal convoluted tubule. So you can see here proximal convoluted tubule, as you can see they extend further to form a highly coiled structure which is called as the proximal convoluted tubule. So right from here up till this part, it is called as the renal tubule. So that is why the kidney is divided into two main parts, the glomerulus and the renal tubule. So next, moving further, after the proximal convoluted tubule, will the structure of the nephron stop there? So after the proximal convoluted tubule, there is still an extension, right? So what is that extension? It is nothing but the Henle's loop. So it is a hairpin shaped Henle's loop, which is the next part of the proximal convoluted tubule, which has a descending and an ascending limb. As you can see here, the Henle's loop has a descending limb and it has a ascending limb. So this one, descending limb loop of Henle, ascending limb or loop of Henle. So descending means it is coming down, ascending means it is moving up. So therefore it is made up of two loops or two limbs, descending limb and the ascending limb. And the ascending limb continues to a highly coiled tubular region which is called as the distal convoluted tubule. So this ascending limb, as you can see, this particular ascending limb, it continues to one more highly coiled tubular structure. What is that highly coiled tubular structure called as? It is called as the distal convoluted tubule. Next, the distal convoluted tubules of many nephrons, they open into a straight tubular structure which is called as the collecting duct, many of which converge or come together and open into the renal pelvis through the medullary pyramids in the calyces. So all of these, so this distal convoluted tubule, each nephron will have a distal convoluted tubule. So this distal convoluted tubule will end in a straight tubular structure which is called as the collecting duct. So all the collecting ducts of the nephron, they come together to form a network and then they lead themselves into the kidney. So if you want to see the diagram of the kidney, I'll just show you again here. So here we had talked about the calyces, right? So there are millions together of nephrons. So all the nephrons will have the collecting duct, right? That straight tubular structure. all the collecting duct will come conjoined, or it will collaborate with each other, come together, and they will enter into the pelvis, renal pelvis region, and then they enter into the calyces of the kidney. So that is how to the calyces every nephron is being connected. So this is about the structure of the nephron, which is the functional unit of the kidney. So next, moving further, the Malfunction Corpuscle that is there, and the proximal convoluted tubule and the distal convoluted tubule. What is the Malfunction Corpuscle? What is it made up of? Recall, it is made up of Bowman's capsule and it is made up of the proximal convoluted tubule, right? So that is the part of the kidney is made up of two parts, the renal tubule and the glomerulus. The glomerulus was different part of the kidney, that is the central part of the kidney, and the renal tubule is made up of the Bowman's capsule and the proximal convoluted tubule. We had studied that. Now, the renal tubule along with the glomerulus, together it is called as the Malfunction Corpuscle, right? So, therefore, the Malfunction Corpuscle, the proximal convoluted tubule and the distal convoluted tubule of the nephron are situated in the cortical region of the kidney, whereas the Henle's loop of the nephron, that is the nephron is made up of the descending Henle's loop and the ascending Henle's loop, that actually is present in the medulla region of the kidney. And in majority of the nephrons, the loop of the Henle's is too short and extends only very little into the medulla, and such nephrons are called as the cortical nephrons. So what are cortical nephrons? So cortical nephrons are the nephrons in having very short Henle's loop, and therefore they extend only to a small extent into the medulla region of the kidney, and such kidneys are called as the cortical nephrons. So this was about the structure of the kidney. And in some of the nephrons, the loop of Henle's is very, very long and runs deep into the medulla. These nephrons are called as juxtamedullary nephrons. So there are two types of nephrons in the kidney. Some of the nephrons have very short Henle's loop, therefore they enter very little into the medulla region of the kidney, and they are called as the cortical nephrons. And some of the nephrons, they have very long Henle's loop, therefore it extends too much into the, runs deep into or extends deep into the medulla region of the kidney, and it is called as the juxtamedullary nephron. So the efferent, now talking about the efferent arteriole. So the efferent arteriole that emerges out from the glomerulus, right? So this efferent arteriole that is there, it is emerging out from the glomerulus. It is coming out of the glomerulus. So the efferent arteriole that comes out of the glomerulus, it forms a fine capillary network around the renal tubule, and it is called as the peritubular capillaries. So if you can see here, these efferent arterioles, they form a fine network around the tubules of the kidney. They pass through the Henle's loop and all that, right? Can you see the fine network, the red color one that is shown here? So it is a capillary network, and that capillary network is called as the peritubular capillaries. And a minute vessel of this network runs parallel to the Henle's loop, forming a U-shaped vasa recta. So don't get confused with this. Those efferent arterioles which form small capillaries, the efferent arteriole that comes out of the glomerulus, they extend to form small capillaries around the proximal convoluted tubule, which is called as the peritubular capillaries, and they also further extend to form very fine capillary structures around the Henle's loop, that is the descending and the ascending loop of the Henle's, in a U-shaped form, which is called as the vasa recta. So much is called as the vasa recta. These are called as the vasa recta, whereas these which are surrounding the proximal convoluted tubule, they are called as the peritubular capillaries. Peritubular capillaries. So next, vasa recta is absent or highly reduced in the case of cortical nephrons. So what are cortical nephrons? Cortical nephrons are the nephrons which are having very short Henle's loop. Because they have very short Henle's loop, the vasa recta will also be very less in them, right? So that is why vasa recta are quite minimal or almost absent in the case of nephrons having a very short Henle's loop or absent in the cortical nephrons. So this is about the structure of the human excretory system. So I hope you understood the session very well, wherein we studied about the different excretory products, and based on the type of excretory product that is being eliminated from the animals are classified into three types: ammonotelic animals, uriccotelic animals and ureotelic animals. And also we studied about the different excretory structures present in the vertebrates and the different the excretory structure present in the invertebrate, that is the kidney, wherein we specially concentrated on the human excretory system. And we understood that human excretory system, it consists of a pair of kidney, and in that pair of kidney is made up of millions of nephrons, which is a functional unit of the kidney. And we also learnt about the structure of the nephron, wherein the nephron is made up of the glomerulus and it is made up of the renal tubules. The glomerulus, it is an extension of the efferent arteriole, and out of the glomerulus comes the efferent arteriole, which carries the blood out of the kidney. And also we learned that the Bowman's capsule along with the glomerulus, it is, and the renal tubule and all that is called as the Malfunction corpuscles. And we also studied that the Bowman's capsule extends to form a highly tubular structure, highly coiled tubular structure, which is called as the proximal convoluted tubule. And this proximal convoluted tubule further extends to form the Henle's loop, which is having a ascending limb, descending limb and an ascending limb. The ascending limb of the Henle's loop further continues into a highly coiled structure, which is called as the distal convoluted tubule. And this distal convoluted tubule ends in a straight tubular structure, which is called as the collecting duct. And all these collecting duct finally come together and enters into the calyces of the kidney. So all that we had studied. And we had also studied that the efferent arteriole that is there, it extends around the proximal convoluted tubule in the form of very small capillaries, which are called as the peritubular capillaries, and they also extend further around the Henle's loop and they are called as the vasa recta. And this vasa recta is almost negligible or not at all present in the Henle's loop, which are very short, that is in the cortical nephrons, those having very short Henle's loop. So this was the structure of the kidney. So with this, we have understood the structure of the kidney. So in the next session, it will be easy for us to understand the formation of urine and the functions of the different tubules that are present in the nephron. So we shall meet again in the coming session. Thank you.